Hello! So the Antonov AN-2 has been released for Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think it's been developed by AT Simulations, and I have to say they have done an absolutely fantastic job on it. You can call this study level. Everything seems to work and everything seems to react as you would imagine it should. And I say imagine, obviously I've never seen the real aircraft, so all I have to go on is cribbing from videos of the real thing. They're all over YouTube, and the various instructions you can find for previous versions of this aircraft in other simulators. So I've gone and worked my way backwards and learnt my way around bits and pieces of the cockpit, just enough to get the aircraft up and running. Okay, so as you can see, it's absolutely wonderfully modelled. So what we're going to do is just go through the startup sequence to get this up and running from cold and dark, as I said. So if we go and jump inside, the quality of modelling continues inside. It's absolutely fantastic. But you'll see the biggest hill we have to climb here is everything is written in Russian. So I'm going to be quite slow as I go around the switches because I'm looking for them as well. And I'm going to be explaining what things are, not in too much detail, but also I'll be referring to notes. So there will be pauses as I read my own notes, make sense of them, and then show you in the cockpit where something is. Okay, so where do we get started with this aircraft? The master power switch is this one that stood up at the front of the pedestal, and we push it forwards. Yeah, and the light comes on the panel to show us that we have power to the aircraft. The next thing we do is turn on the comm radios. That's the two switches over here on the top of the panel. Okay, so obviously the reason for turning those on so early is so you can communicate with the tower, for example, to let them know that or to ask them if you have clearance to start your engines. So then you go down to the console in the middle and you go for the fuel shutoff valve, which is the big red lever over here. Then we go and open the pneumatic valve that will be used to start the engine. That's this giant knob at the side of the cockpit, so you turn that and you hear the hiss as it releases. You make sure the fuel selector is on both, so that means when this is left, right and both, so we need to turn this to face the direction the aircraft's going, basically. And then down at the side of the cockpit down here, if we get the yoke out of the way so we can see this, those are the beacon light switches. Okay. Next we go and turn on the anti-fire system. So on the left bank of these switches, on the second row, the fourth switch, I think I've got this right. 1, 2, 3. Let's see. Yeah, the anti-fire light has come on. Okay, so then on the pedestal, we go and turn the sixth switch to on, which is the engine gauge power. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. And the fuel quantity power switch. So what we're really doing here, these are switches for ancillary systems, so for the gauges. Many sections of the cockpit have actually got separate wiring looms, I'm guessing, so you're actually, it's similar to the AN-225 in that respect. They continued on with this way of having breaker switches for different systems. So then, in terms of the levers, we're going to move the propeller to high RPM, which is this wedge-shaped lever. When we're going to move the mixture to rich, so that's the blue lever, and it has to be back. Back is rich. Then on the floor, down the side of the pilot, there is a lever here. We're going to pump it. So this is pulling fuel into the system. You're hand priming the systems, really. So we give that a few wiggles. I have no idea how many. I've not really practiced this much yet, so I don't know what the minimums are on these things. And then behind the pilot, there's the primer. Yeah, to pull fuel into the carburetor, I guess, to start the engine. Okay, so we've done that. So then we go and look at I'm just reading my own notes here. So we turn back round. So magnetos are directly in front of the pilot, so we turn that to 1+2. We turn on the start master switch. Now, this is the bit that foxed me for quite a while. We have to watch this gauge, and we're going to hold the left mouse button down and drag this switch and keep the mouse button down the whole time. So we're going to drag left. So this is spinning up the flywheel that will start the engine. So you can see on that gauge at the bottom right, I can't point the mouse at it because I'm holding this switch on. When that needle gets to about 8, and I'm going to crack the throttle open while we're doing this. When it gets to about 8, you can drag right violently. And that, when we were holding left, it was doing the flywheel. When we held it right, it released the clutch on the flywheel onto the engine. And the big bang you heard was ignition, and now the engine's quietly purring away. Okay, so the immediate thing we do then, we turn off the master start switch. We put the parking brake on. We turn off the master start switch. Again, I didn't go through the full checklist, did I? So parking brake would have been on the checklist. And we turn off the air pressure that was used to spin up the flywheel. Okay, so we now have an engine running. So the most difficult part of this is done. If we go and look outside, it sounds wonderful. So if we sit on the parking brake and rev it up, okay, so a few more things to do around the cockpit now we've got the engine running, is go and turn on the alternator. So on the yellow strip at the top of here, you remember there was a master power switch, the alternator's next to it. We turn the inverter on, so to the right of the V meter, the next switch is the inverter. Then all of the left switches go on at the top of here. So again, these are breakout power switches for the various systems around the aircraft. Second row, the left 2 switches go on. On the pedestal, the rest of the switches go on. On the panel, the nav lights now come on. So that's the nav light is that one. Taxi light is the right one, and these are the landing lights. So we are essentially now ready to go. Something else you'll need to know about is the control for the cowl flaps, which is these two. So this is the oil flaps and the cowl flaps. Okay, so you just hold them in position and they will open and close, the oil and cowl flaps. Okay, so that is the very basics to get this thing up and running. Obviously we're going to do more videos taking it for flights and flying it around. We'll go and do a very quick circuit just to see that happen. So I'm going to move the flaps to take off position. I'm going to release the parking brake. So look how far we rolled when I had the parking brake off. So we're going to turn. It's worth pointing out there is a switch here in the cockpit. It's right here, which locks or unlocks the tail wheel. So I have not flown this yet. So all I've done is got the engine up and running. I've just talked myself into doing this while talking to you. So this is going to be very much in the spirit of a test flight. I've got live weather on, so I have no idea what the weather's doing. Let's have a look at the windsock. We're going the wrong way for the wind. So I'm going to taxi down and turn around. Oh no, we are going the right way for the wind. Okay, this is a short takeoff aircraft, so we'll let the tail come up. The wind is trying to get under the wing, and we're up immediately. We've got no payload obviously, so the aircraft's very light. I was only on 3/4 throttle then as well. So we're going to pull up the flaps taken off from Booker Airfield, by the way, or Wycombe Air Park. So you can see this is unbelievably modelled. It's like looking at a photograph wherever you look. And most things work as well. So you can see as well, you know, you can move the covers around. They do cast shadows as they should. You can even see like the lights reflecting in the mirrors. How cool is that? So all we're going to do is a very, very quick circuit. I've not looked at any of the stats on how you should fly the aircraft, so this is me feeling it out basically. I'm at 50% throttle at the moment, just coming around to 60 degrees at Wycombe. We've gone the wrong way for the circuit, by the way. Most circuits at Wycombe you should turn right going on runway 24 and fly out over the fields. The reason for that is doing this way we fly over villages full of wealthy people who will ring the airfield and complain, and they will complain bitterly. Okay, let's get the flaps back out, cut the throttle. It's really nice visibility as well, has to be said. And before anybody asks, I haven't found the switches for the fans yet, but obviously I will be recording many more videos with this aircraft, so we'll see how we go. Obviously everything's in metric because this is from Russia, so speed, indicated airspeed is in kilometers per hour, not miles per hour or knots, so you need to have that in mind. So I am judging this purely on how much backstick I'm having to use, so I have no idea what the stall speed is. So gone to full flaps. The speed is kind of holding at 150 kilometers an hour. I didn't calibrate the altimeter, but there's not much point because this was just a very visual circuit. Again, this is almost a test flight, never having set foot in this before. I'm going to just skid myself sideways away from that pillar. So let's just get over the runway. Let's sit up. Again, this is all visual now. There we go, we just touched the wheels. Turn the aircraft round. There's a bit of a crosswind today. Pull the tail wheel down onto the floor with the elevators. Use the wheel brakes. I've noticed if you use the wheel brakes, you use the pressure built up to engage them, and then you can't use them a second time. So you need to be definite about how you do things. Or at least there are procedures you must follow to do things properly. So there we go, we're just going to taxi back to the painted line in the grass. Isn't it fantastic? It's worth pointing out, if you start the engine from the outside view, all kinds of smoke belches out of the exhausts as the engine fires up. It's very, very cool. Let's get those flaps back up on the way back in. Right, rather than make you sit through me taxiing all the way back in, I'm going to bring it to a stop on the grass. Or not. Yeah, I've run out of that pressure. So there's obviously a system there to manage pressure for the wheel brakes, which I have not managed properly. So what I'm going to do is just turn the aircraft, which will obviously run it out of speed, and there it goes. So let's pull the mixture and we should kill the engine. And there it goes. How fantastic is that? Okay, so obviously there is a proper procedure to switching everything back off. We're not going to get into it today. So that was just a very quick first look at the Antonov AN-2 and a cold and dark startup. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll be back again soon. I will write up these notes, but obviously I'll have to have screenshots in them and all sorts to guide you through it. So I'll see you again soon.